essentially the problem is linked to the specificity of the EU. And yet, and this is the contradiction, I would argue that despite being sui generis, atypical, and so on, the EU and its democratic problems must be addressed, keeping in mind what we know of democratic political system that we are aware of, that is to say, what we know of democracy at the state level. So what's the EU, essentially? It's always fine, of course, to hear references to Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, but no one, I think, would think of describing EU institutions as government by the people, for the people, and through the people. If I were to, let's say, try and adjust this to the EU setting, I would say it's primarily government by the states and for the states to a large extent, much more so in a crisis situation in which indeed the intergovernmental character of the EU has been greatly strengthened, as you may have noticed with the developments over the last years. Of course, we all know that there is this thing called the European Parliament, and we are aware, because we read pink newspapers, that it's become somewhat pushy. Well, it's not become, actually, it's been pushy for quite some time. Thank God, I would add, if you allow me to express an opinion on that matter. But the point is that it's the odd element in the system which is basically a union of states. And that, I think, is the important thing to keep in mind when we talk about democracy. The real problem is how can we think of a democratic union of states? That's a very difficult issue. It's difficult enough to hold one's government accountable and to have a truly democratic political system back at home in our respective member countries. What about the union of states? Of course, it's substantially more difficult question.